is with RMI. So Lily, you're going to talk about a little bit about some of the transactions that you're seeing in the market, because I mean, it's a great initiative that RMI has launched. I don't know those of you that are familiar with this, but it's really another way to help corporates procure greater renewable energy. So Lily, do you want to share a bit about what you're doing and what you're seeing in the market right now? And then we're going to come back to Karen because I've got more questions for her.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, CDP, for having me here. I'd like to ask a question to the audience first, which is who's heard of the First Solar Apple deal that happened in January this year? Just wondering, raise of hands. Okay, well, that's clearly not enough. We need a lot more of these transactions to happen. And they are really transforming the market, the renewables market. Corporate capital has a huge potential to take off big, bite-sized pieces of the renewable energy market. And we started, of course, back in 2008 with these types of transactions with SC Johnson and Walmart, and then Google took the lead from 2010 to 2012. But the market really started adding more players with Apple, BD, Facebook, and Microsoft in 2013. And then last year, we hit 1 gigawatts of renewable energy alone from corporate offtake, large-scale, utility-scale renewable projects, new renewable projects built on the ground because of companies in the US and global markets. One of the deals that Google did was 407 megawatts alone last year of renewable power. This year, we're about at the same rate. We're going to hit that same 1 gigawatt target or surpass it. We're at May, and we've had 716 megawatts of renewable power. This time, we have 2 major solar deals. Before that, it was all wind. We have diverse sectors coming from healthcare to consumer products to Dow Chemical joining the fray. And then now we're also seeing smaller bite sizes of renewable energy that have shorter terms and then smaller pieces of megawatts. And so this type of transactional trend to us is something that we can absolutely scale up. And the Business Renewable Center is there to help companies navigate the journey towards these making these transactions happen. I think one real clear evidence of how companies can really change the space in renewable energy is that in 2014, the market penetration of corporate involvement, participation in renewable markets was 10%. This year, out of that 716 megawatts, we're at 25%. 25% of what developers are selling to market in the renewable space comes from you guys, comes from companies themselves buying and off-taking renewable energy. And why? Why are companies doing this, Amy? Well, number one, because it's cost competitive. The economics of renewable energy has completely changed and is going to keep changing in the years to come. We're at a tipping point that will change the market and the energy market at large. And the second thing is basically a corporate PPA, or basically the idea of mainstreaming renewables into a company's portfolio or a sustainability strategy is becoming commonplace. A PPA will take off a huge portion of your climate goals and continue to do so in 20 to 30-year terms if you wanted. And then the third thing that a large transaction in renewables can offer to the market is choice. You no longer have to depend on the choices provided to the utilities. You're basically working directly with the renewable project developer to make new renewable power projects happen in whatever region and market that you choose. So the idea of choice and independence, I think, is very, as much as important as cost competitiveness of solar and wind right now. It also de-risks your portfolio, and some of these things are the reasons why these early movers have changed the market considerably already.
Great. I just want to pick up on your comment about Dow, because those of you who don't know about this transaction, which is in Texas, Dow, that will power the first, my understanding, the first U.S. manufacturing plant 100% by wind. It's a big deal, and you don't think of Dow maybe traditionally in this space and compared to some of the other names that Lily mentioned. So it's a big transaction that's sort of under the radar at the moment, but it's really important signal. I think that's what we're trying to get at here. And at first you think about 100% renewable, that's just too aspirational, but the reality is it isn't. And as you take chunks of this off, we're beginning to learn from each other, which helps drive, of course, these markets. And I think coming back to Karen, that would be great if you could just maybe explain, like in the U.S. market, because you guys do have 100% renewable in the U.S., what have been some of the key learnings that you've taken along the way as you make your next transaction?
Yeah, I think for us, the driver of purchase for REX for us was to reduce our carbon footprint. And we decided to go 100% renewables in the U.S. because of the majority of the states that we operate in are coal fire generation, or they were at the time, and it was the most efficient and effective way to reduce our greenhouse gases. At the time that we started, the power purchase agreements were still in their infancy, and there wasn't a lot of certification. But we set our own principles, which were that we were wanting to support renewable energy development within our footprint, within our operating footprint, and we wanted to support renewable energy development that was new to the grid. So in a way, I think I'm pleased that the principles that we set really are exactly what's happening now in the market through some of these new innovations. And although we haven't yet done a power purchase agreement because of how we're contracting, it's certainly something we're looking at. I guess the other thing we just consider around REX is the notion of democratization of the grid, if you will, that it's really great to have a specific facility in a specific location benefiting a specific business, but at the end of the day, we need to ensure that renewables are being brought on right across the grid if we really want to make a big difference. And so when you have a decentralized company like ours, what we're trying to do is look at how we can move this forward in 15 states.
I think that's important also, that everybody's playing the role that they can play strategically for their company, because it's not one size fits all, obviously, when you see the diversity that's out there. Todd, do you have any thoughts on sort of what's been happening in the market with, as we just see what Lily has?
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, there are many different ways to purchase renewable energy, and the direct, we are seeing, as Lily is presented, this direct purchasing options are becoming more popular, and they're becoming easier for companies, especially depending where you're located. These are options that are proliferating for companies, and initiatives like the Business Renewable Center and RMI are helping facilitate these options, and that's a part of the market that's growing rapidly. We are seeing the market continue to grow in general, the voluntary market for renewable energy, and for the portion that we certify, and I should mention Greenie certification, which is the leading third-party certification for renewable energy in North America. We started that program in 1998. And certifying mostly competitive electricity products at a time when markets were deregulating, and you started to see green power products being offered by competitive sellers. And as the market sort of changed, we saw a large surge in unbundled REP purchases, representing sort of the majority of transactions and products in the market. And now we're seeing a shift back towards more competitive products, utility products, and direct procurement. So yeah, that we have seen that shift and change. But as you said, and as Karen pointed out, the market can facilitate transactions and products that are that fit with your organization's goals. And obviously, when you think about your impact, you can think about it in terms of the overall market, the national market for renewable energy, which is going to be critical to scaling renewable energy across the United States, the massive expansion of renewable energy that we're all looking for, we're going to need a market to do that, a national market to do that, and that helps make renewable energy cheaper. We can build renewable energy where it makes the most sense, and everybody can access renewable energy regardless of where they're located. If you want to have an impact on your local grid and you have the ability to do that, there are financial benefits to doing that, and you can work through some of these PPAs and direct procurement options and tell a great story about your impact on the local grid directly. And so there's options for you in this market, in the voluntary renewable energy market. It's an existing market that you can use to reduce your footprint.
I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of questions from the audience, so I just want to ask one more question here, then open it up, because we do have tight time. The theme of the day here is obviously about driving ambition, but one of the questions that I know will be asked throughout is what is your carbon potential? So, Lily, you have an answer for that.
Yes.
In the broad frame of CDPs, what is your carbon potential?
In typical Rocky Mountain Institute manner, we have a specific number for you. Our carbon potential is 60 gigawatts of new renewable power that the Fortune 500 could take on in the next 10 to 15 years. 60 gigawatts of new renewable power, solar and wind, would represent about 300 million metric tons of carbon. That means taking off the entire carbon footprint of the UK, for example, every year. If the companies came up to the plate and decided to take a piece of this pie and start procuring renewable energy. And we absolutely see the math, we can do it. I think all it takes is actually what we have said. It's an evolution of knowledge. We need to collaborate, and we need to share a lot more information on how a transaction gets done. And that's exactly what the Business Renewable Center and I have to say WRI, WWF, BSR, and ARIA 100 has been doing all this time is renewable options span a whole spectrum. And the BRC is there to help on the transactional journey. But there's so many opportunities for companies to get involved across the spectrum.
And Karen, do you have an answer of what's the carbon potential for TD Bank?
Well, it's really a personal answer, but I guess I would say in typical banking terms, it's really not specific. But when I look at it, we are in the middle of a major period of technology disruption, and all of that is electricity enabled. All of our businesses are changing literally day by day into the type of businesses we hardly even recognize. We certainly see that in the FI sector. All of that is going to have to be powered by electricity. And so I guess my aspiration would certainly be that in order to keep our world moving forward, we are going to have energy that preserves natural capital, that is cheap, and that is accessible to all globally. So that would be my aspiration.
Mary, do you have a response?
I think they've covered it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'd like to open it up to questions because we also want to save time at the end for Mary to give her presentation, which will be about 10 minutes long. So I know there are people, staff from CDP walking around with microphones. We made it sound very easy, so I'm surprised if there aren't any questions out in the audience there. Oh, here, wait, I think we've got a...
I have two questions for Karen. Development within the footprint.
Sorry, we can't really hear you up here. Maybe you could yell.
Or stand.
Yeah. No, our focus really was to say, okay, we're operating in this state. Can we kind of help reduce emission factors in this state? Yeah. That's a good question. Really, we were feeding the energy back into the grid just to reduce our own emissions. The interesting thing, when we did start doing that, it did result in us having to take a look at the business case for our stores, and we were able to have our real estate group and our retail bank accept the fact that there would be a 7 to 8 year return on investment, and after that we'd be making money. So, everybody focuses on what's the return on investment. We had to really say, and that means after 7 years, we'll be making money. So that was the basis of the business case for the rooftop renewables.
And I just want to reiterate that it's important, again, that if you're making a claim, a renewable energy usage claim, you have to have the REC. So even if you have on-site solar that you own, you need to retain that REC in order to make a claim. In order to make a Scope 2 claim or a renewable energy usage claim, you need to retain that REC. And obviously, there's other financial benefits to owning your own generation, but the usage claim comes from the REC.
And that's a piece of guidance that has come in over the 8 years, but was not there to start. So these are some of the things that are actually pretty helpful to see the standards developing.
There was a question here, did you?
Yes.